One of the more disturbing features about the debate between Trump and Biden the other day, apart from the fact that Biden looked so ill and so old that not only is it highly questionable whether or not he's going to make it to a second term, whether he's going to make it through a second term, but whether or not he's even going to make it to the end of the first term, was the point at which Donald Trump claimed that under his premiership, Russia would not have dared to have invaded Ukraine, and indeed he'd had a conversation with Putin about Putin's dream of invading Ukraine. When did this conversation take place? Is it recorded? Is it noted somewhere? This is the point, because it seems that there's an element of bragging, an element of posturing here, where Donald Trump is trying to present to the American audience, to the world, that President Putin is his bitch. And this claim by Trump the other night that Putin would never have invaded under his watch and that he'd had this conversation with him needs to be seen in the context of the earlier conversation, or of the earlier claims that he was making, that if countries in Europe didn't pay their NATO dues, then he would encourage them to be taken over by Putin. He would leave them to Putin's desire, whatever the hell they want, to any NATO member that doesn't meet spending guidelines on defence. That was stunning. NATO was busted until I came along, he said. I said, everyone's got to pay. And they said, well, what if we don't pay? Are you still going to protect us? Absolutely not. They couldn't believe the answer. He said, one of the presidents of a big country said, would they still defend us if we were invaded by Russia, even if they don't pay? No, I would not protect you, Trump recalled telling that president. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills. And President Biden said that Trump is making clear that he will abandon our NATO allies. Trump's admission that he intends to give Putin the green light for war or violence, to continue his brutal assault against a free Ukraine, to expand his aggression to the people of Poland, the Baltic states, is appalling and dangerous. And, this goes against the NATO principle that any attack on NATO will be met with a forceful and united response by the whole of NATO. Any suggestion that allies will not defend each other undermines all our security, including that of the US, and puts American and European soldiers at increased risk. And that is the response to Trump's statements about NATO. And it's as if Trump is trying to suggest that he has Putin on a leash, on a lead, like some mad dog that he can untie and let loose, cry havoc for the dogs of war. And, well, I'd always thought that the Belarusian president was Putin's bitch. So now we know whose bitch Putin is. Putin is Trump's bitch. And but I think that's simply in Trump's imagination. Has Trump not realised that Putin is dead and in a fridge, in a Smeg fridge, pushing up against the frozen peas from Smedley? Has Trump not been told this, or is Trump not capable of distinguishing between the voice of the original and the voice of a doppelganger? Somehow, I don't believe Trump's posturing in the same way as I don't believe Putin's posturing. And I don't know what is the worst prospect: another Biden premiership where the president can barely stay awake and can barely function, or a Trump presidency in which the distance between reality and fantasy has been blurred to the point of idiocy. I'd love to know what you think, and I'd love to know why nobody seems to be picking up this throwaway line in that debate. I mean, there were so many throwaway lines, and many of them were almost impossible to decipher because Biden's mumbling has got to the point where you don't know what he's saying, you don't know what he's doing. And of course, Trump was only too happy to ridicule that. But Trump should know that Biden is the President of the United States at the moment, and we should look on that and be worried, I think. That is the message. That is the fundamental message from this exchange. But the second message is the posturing and the boasting and the crazy suggestion that Putin is at Trump's command. That, I think, is a very worrying assumption.